Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here, and I want to bring you a little bit of a theory craft build here for Thea3, mostly focusing here on mind control. Now, Thea3 is pretty much all focused on erosion damage, so mind control is kind of a no-brainer type of skill to work in with her, and I just kind of wanted to give you kind of what I think could potentially be a very viable endgame build. Obviously, we do not have access to actually play the season yet, and so here's kind of like what I think could potentially be one of the good builds. So the final skill setup here, where we're doing mind control using Star Stalker, Shackles of Malice, Corruption, and Black Hole, pretty much to blast our damage to the sky. And you could potentially drop one of these skills for a defensive skill or a recovery skill, and that might even be necessary for deep space with some of the mechanics, but it kind of is like for maximum amount of damage. This is kind of what you want to do. And as you can guess here, we're also going to be doing some aura stacking. Yes, we're going to be doing some lone walker boots as well. This is definitely something that I think could potentially be very, very good. We could potentially even do like some mega stacking instead, but I think that's like a different setup. Now, if you don't know what Thea3 does, pretty much she gets blessings every 2 seconds, focus, agility, and tenacity, kind of rotates through them. And then any effect that would increase her maximum amount of blessings instead reduces it. But what it does increase is the maximum desecration stacks that you can apply. And each blessing can only give you 4 max stacks of desecration until much later on. But desecration reads 15% additional erosion damage taken multiplies for each stack of desecration, and it starts off with 3 stacks and lasts for 5 seconds, can only affect 1 target. So if you were to get, all of these blessings down this for a 12 plus 3, that's 15. 15 times 15 is a lot of damage. Or so, yeah, we'll have to see how this actually stacks up. But you're pretty much just going to be able to do a lot of erosion damage just from stacking these blessings. You do kind of get hurt a little bit in the defenses because you're not able to stack tenacity for damage, but I think that overall is going to be pretty darn powerful. And yeah, we just have a lot of traits here that just increase our erosion damage and just help us out like doing more erosion damage. So you can really just do any skill. I think mind control is going to be cool. So the second trait here, Unholy Baptism, increases our erosion damage. Also makes it so that enemies that are near a desecrated target have a 30% chance to explode. Our next hero trait, Disgrace Minister here, limits desecration to elites only, but makes it so that when enemies are kind of isolated, they're going to take a lot of damage from this sacrificial pawn. This basically counts as a crowd control and makes them do less damage and take more erosion damage. And then our final trait we're going to use is Onset of Depravity. This causes elites to take true damage equal to 6% of their maximum life. And this can scale up all the way up to 20% of their HP based on the trait level and your max desecration stacks. So we can kind of see like at level 5, it's going to give you 70% of the max desecration stacks is applied to this value to deal true damage up to 20%. So that's basically a 25% damage boost if all enemies are just starting at 80% out of 100. This debuff, you also get a debuff if they're under any crowd control that makes it so that you have minus 1% erosion res and plus 1 additional erosion damage taken for each type of crowd control effect that you're under. Now, cool thing is, mind control itself has one of its supports that pretty much makes it so that it applies crowd control nonstop. And so this one here, the Entice, sorry about that. Entice pretty much makes it so that it just will nonstop apply crowd control, prioritizing stuff that has not yet been applied to the enemy. And so this is going to allow you to stack up a lot of crowd control on enemies real quick. And then you're going to take advantage of that with Onset of Depravity. For passive trees, I just kind of went with the classic Goddess of Deception, Psychic, and this is not the right image, I'll replace that, and Warlock. And these pretty much I think are just really strong options, especially because we're going to do aura stacking. And so going and getting ourselves like off the beaten track is pretty darn important because it's going to allow us to basically have more mana reservation. It pretty much makes it so that every single support you add to an aura actually reduces the amount of mana that is reserved as opposed to not doing anything to it or increasing it. And so this is just very, very powerful for aura stacking. And then also Indifference has lost 1 skill level from it, but now also provides plus 10 sealed mana compensation, which just helps us reserve even more auras. Now for gear, I don't necessarily know if there's going to be the actual endgame perfect kind of setup here, but I did want to kind of give you an idea of what we're kind of going to be kind of looking for. Pretty much mostly like max life, gear evasion, things like sealed mana compensation, affliction effect, reaping duration, reaping CDR, and like just sealed mana, aura effect, all that stuff across all the things. I pretty much put like what I think is going to be very good here on all the spots. Even some of the dream mods, I think you're going to want probably 3 different plus blessings just to kind of like fill out. And then for gloves, we're gonna be taking the Wings of Light. This has got a little bit of a buff here where it makes it so that Intimidated gives you even more damage for each type of crowd control the enemy is under, sort of stacking up those crowd controls with mind control and then just blowing them up with Wings of Light. These gloves are probably going to be rather expensive this season. And then probably one of the most expensive pair of gear basically is the Lone Walker's boots here. We're gonna be looking for ones that have precise deep pain. It's just gonna give us movement speed, free aura, more aura effect while we're affected by auras, and then more aura effect for being affected by 4 sealed mana compensation. So it's pretty much just aura. We sound like we're in a JoJo. Now, next up for hero memories, I think the bases you're going to use are going to be intelligence, max life, movement speed. Probably the best implicits are these, the hero trait level and reaping cooldown recovery speed. But there's other stuff, so things to give you damage. Getting these +2s is just very expensive, but like if you can get them, they're also very, very good. Slates, we're gonna be looking for slates to just increase damage, skill levels, max blessings for channel stacks. I haven't actually figured out what product is going to be the best with all of the changes that they made this season. For candles, we're going to want stuff like max channel stacks because mind control scales pretty heavily with max channel stacks. We also need +1 curse from our candle. We want for every 1 channel stack, we get channel skill damage. We can also pick up stuff like main skill supported by control spell, and non-critical strikes deal less damage because we're not hitting anyways. I want to put a little section here about fates and pack spirits because there is basically like new systems from last season. And these fates do give you quite a bit of power because you can get stuff like sealed mana compensation, aura effect. There's even like these new kismets that some of them are new, but some of these just give you quite a bit of stuff. So for example here, the kismet of the Pale Fox will give us 1 stack of focus blessing whenever we're using a non-main skill. We're going to automate all of those extra skills we're going to be using. And so this just allows us to be spamming out desecration nonstop because we have all of these skills firing off. Tiger Roar is the way that we're going to be applying Intimidated. This also helps us do more damage against low life enemies. This just helps us apply Intimidated for our gloves consistently. And we have a whole bunch of good defensive options. There's probably more defensive options than what I put here. Just kind of want to give you an idea of what I think could be some really good combinations. So Twin Cities, I think, is just really, really solid. You alternate between Delayed Pain and Frost Shield, and it's just permanently you have one of these skills up. And then the next 3 here, I think, are just probably a little bit dirty if you can fit all of them into your build together. So you can have gain 1 stack of deflection for 5 meters you move, and you have a chance to gain more deflection when you gain deflection. Then we have +1 maximum deflection, and we gain 1 additional stack of deflection whenever we gain deflection. So it's just stacking up even faster. And then Hanging Bird here makes it so that evading has the lucky effect when having at least 3 stacks of deflection. And then we have negative additional evasion, which just kind of hurt our evasion a little bit, but having it be lucky instead means that we get to flip 2 coins when checking to see if we evaded some damage. This can pretty much just allow us to live through some mechanics that you just really can't like survive through otherwise. And this is kind of what I think could be okay. There's definitely a lot of different things you could do here. Lastly, I think for best pack spirits, we're going to be looking at like Abyssal Soul King, Swaying Bonnie, and the Portrait of the Fallen Saintess. There's very few builds in the game that have like 3 legendary pets that you can like really kind of use. The Abyssal Soul King's great for reaping. Swaying Bonnie gives us movement speed, channeling benefits, max channel stacks, just really all the stuff you kind of want. And the new Portrait of a Fallen Saintess gives us a lot of erosion damage stuff. I think it's just going to be overwhelmingly popular on Thea 3. I don't think that any of these are necessary at all in order to like play the character or even have a good time. But if you have them, might as well use them. And that's pretty much a good breakdown of what I think is probably going to be good. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to play this right off the bat, but we'll have to kind of see. I did just kind of want to give you guys an idea of kind of what you could potentially aim for with Thea 3. I'm sure there's going to be several builds that come out of the woodwork for this season. We'll have to see what they are. Thank you much, guys, for coming by. Come by the stream. We'll see you next time.